Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this Wednesday press conference. I appreciate everyone bearing with us as we continue our press conferences virtually as we navigate these tough times. This morning, we're going to have Major Martha Dozier with us from the Community Services Bureau to discuss a series of cases recently that were very volatile, very rapidly evolving cases that necessitated the collaboration between our patrol divisions and our CPCRT. And the Major's going to enlighten us a little bit further on that topic. Major?
All right. Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. CMPD launched our Community Policing Crisis Response Team in April of 2019. The team was developed to provide public safety and service through the deployment of assigned officers who partner with licensed mental health clinicians. We have 6 teams in place currently. Each team is comprised of a sworn officer and licensed mental health clinician. The mission of this team is to provide a professional response to our community for those challenged with mental or behavioral issues. Our collaborative team model provides an opportunity for us to enhance our customer service by providing access to mental health services through this intervention, diverting officers from the criminal justice system and assisting patrol for better outcomes. This year alone, this team has responded to more than 2,300 calls for service. In addition to this response to the community, more than 600 community members have been connected to outside assistance through the CPCRT. I would like to highlight a few examples of the team's work in successfully helping to de-escalate situations involving suicidal subjects armed with guns, and a recent incident where they were able to assist patrol in obtaining an involuntary commitment order on another armed individual. On August the 24th, in the Hickory Grove Division, a suicidal subject armed with a gun was in a mental health crisis. Responding officers from multiple divisions were able to evacuate the surrounding areas, set up a perimeter, and begin those conversations. With the assistance of CPCRT and a police officer, a military veteran, they were able to peacefully resolve this situation. This was even after the individual had fired his weapon twice during the course of our contact. De-escalation efforts succeeded that night. Thank you not only to the CPCRT, but to all patrol officers and supervisors on the scene who took the extra time to ensure a safe resolution. 2 days later, in North Division, patrol officers responded to a suicidal subject with a gun. The CPCRT responded and were able to assist officers with this individual, leading to a successful de-escalation effort and a successful resolution when he voluntarily laid down his firearm and was provided the assistance he needed. This past Monday morning, the CPCRT assisted the Central Division with an involuntary commitment order for an individual who was taken into custody after brandishing a rifle. Thank you to the quick response of patrol and our Special Weapons and Tactics team. I want to say that none of the calls that we went on recently resulted in full SWAT deployments. All of these calls resulted in safe outcomes. These de-escalation efforts matter. Although all these calls involved guns, our CPCRT has responded to over a couple thousand calls for service where our patrol officers requested their assistance. CMPD strives to make a positive difference in the lives of those who need support and mental health assistance. In addition, the CPCRT doesn't replace our CMPD efforts to continue to certify officers as crisis intervention team members. We currently have about 540 officers trained and 102 dispatchers. That's roughly 48% of patrol and 64% of communications division. I'm also pleased to report that our community policing crisis response team will double in size by the end of this year. This means that we'll have 12 teams of our officer and clinician partnership to better serve the needs of our community. Thank you to our City Council for the recent approval of this expansion effort. We look forward to continuing to assist our patrol officers, assisting with de-escalation efforts, and better serving our community needs, especially during these difficult times. At this time, I would like to introduce you to one of our mental health clinicians, Allison Pasterik and Officer Brian Rogers. They work as a team for our Community Policing Crisis Response Team. Thank you. Allison? Officer Rogers?
Thank you and good morning, everybody. We are happy to be here and be a part of this unit. I've been on the unit since it started in April of 19, and I am happy to see the efforts that the police department is working with our clinicians to engage members of the community and provide a much needed service. All of our clinicians on the unit are master's level licensed social workers or counselors. They all have prior community-based experience. All of the clinicians are also required to have a minimum of 20 hours of crisis intervention training within 90 days of their hire date. Evidence-based prevention instruction is also required for all of our clinicians. We have actually seen these things in the workings with just the events in the last week and seen them be successful. All of our onboarding training also includes field experience, where they are with a trained, seasoned clinician on the unit to provide them with the tools and the experiences that they need to be successful individually on their teams with their officers. Crisis looks forward to expanding the unit through December and doubling the number of clinicians. Through this work, we can increase the number of community members that we are able to reach and touch the lives of and impact them in a positive way, resulting in lives saved and preventing more dire outcomes. Thank you.
Particularly for our media partners that are with us today, we are going to discuss a completely separate incident, set of instances. But before we get to that, do we have any questions specifically for the Major or our CPCRT team? And I would ask of our media partners, like I normally do, once we have one speaker up here, if we will address all of our questions that we have for that one speaker, just to give us a smooth run of show. So any questions for these speakers? Okay. And as we move on, we do want to educate the community on a series of cases that have happened in 2021 and put some troubling information out there. On August 9th of last month, we had an adult female call in from the 5200 block of Freedom Drive. And she advised our responding officers that on 3 separate events leading up to August 9th, she had been at the bus stop there on Freedom Drive. And the same suspect on those 3 different instances had approached her, had revealed his genitalia to her, and had communicated threats to her. Officers worked a variety of leads in that case, but leading up to the end of August, the case had grown cold. On August 29th, we had a female, an adult female, call in from the 1800 block of Teddington Drive, also in the Freedom Division. And this victim reported that a male subject had come up to her front door and had rang the doorbell and had then began masturbating. Responding officers and investigating officers were able to work with those in the community and obtain a private surveillance video. Those investigating officers sent that surveillance video out to members of the CMPD. And your CMPD officers, doing what they do, knowing people out there in the community, within a very short amount of time had identified based on the people they know in the community, they had identified the suspect as John Frank Graham III, born October 6, 1996. With that information, the investigating officer began to seek an arrest warrant on Mr. Graham. The previous investigating officers from those 3 cases reported in early August started matching up the information, the descriptors of Mr. Graham to the suspect description given in those earlier cases, and noticed a variety of similarities. At that point in time, they picked that investigation up of those 3 cases and were able to determine that Mr. Graham was also the suspect in those previous 3 cases leading up to early August. At that point, 3 additional warrants were obtained for Mr. Graham's arrest. As those warrants were being obtained, the Freedom Division Command started allocating resources and an arrest team in the Freedom Division to locate Mr. Graham and to also take him into custody. Shortly after those arrest warrants were issued by the Mecklenburg County Magistrate's Office, our Freedom Division officers were able to locate Mr. Graham and safely take him into custody. He was arrested, brought here to the Law Enforcement Center to be questioned by our Sexual Assault Unit. And upon further workup on this gentleman, we were able to find that back in May of this year, May 31st of 2021, that Mr. Graham, it is alleged that he had approached a child, a female child, well under the age of 16, in the 2500 block of Little Rock Road at a local restaurant. One of our local restaurants that any of us would go to here in the community. He had approached this very young child with his penis exposed, had approached further and closer to that very young child with his penis exposed. The mother, being aware of her surroundings, had then guarded the child, and the suspect immediately fled. Our Communications Division was able to get that suspect description out very quickly, and responding officers were able to locate Mr. Graham close by, and further investigation revealed that he was in fact the suspect in that case. He was arrested and charged with indecent liberties with a child on that day, May 31st, 2021. We then move forward to August 12th, 2021. A adult female victim was returning home, and as she approached her residence, a suspect asked her for a bottle of water. She obliged, but had the suspect stay outside. The adult female went inside and then came back out to find the suspect with his penis exposed, and it appeared that he was masturbating. That adult female fled back inside, locked her door, and the suspect made an effort to open the door. That adult female called the police department. Our responding officers, upon their response, observed Mr. Graham in the area, consistent with the suspect description that the caller had given us, and Mr. Graham ran away on foot. Our responding officers were able to pursue on foot and safely take Mr. Graham into custody on that day. And he was charged with misdemeanor B&E, misdemeanor breaking and entering, and indecent exposure on that day. So as we continue to work through these cases, and to our media partners, I know that we're talking about 4 different cases and a variety of charges. We're going to send that to you in a subsequent media release later today, so be on the lookout for that. We are going to include a photograph of Mr. Graham. We're talking about 4 different instances that have taken place in 2021. We're asking those in the community that as you see this, hopefully put out there by our media partners, as well as we're going to post this on our social media, that if you have additional information or cases that you think this gentleman is involved with, please call 911. Get that information to us as soon as possible. And as always, remember that you can call and you can give anonymous information at Crime Stoppers at 334-1600. So again, we're talking about 4 different cases. The first one on May 31st, second one on August 12th, then 3 events leading up to August 9th, and then finally the one that he was arrested on most recently and is still in custody for is August 29th. So in reference to our media partners, do we have any questions about Mr. Graham? And keep in mind, we are going to be sending you that follow-up press release with those complaint numbers, the addresses, and that photograph. Jonathan Limehouse, good to hear from you this morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that I got this right. So is Mr. Graham in custody right now?
Yes, sir, he is, over at the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from our media partners on this specific topic?
Lexi Wilson, Lexi Wilson has a question.
It's related to another topic. May I still ask that?
Before we move on to another topic, let me reach out to our media partners if we have any questions on this specific topic. Okay. Ms. Wilson, go ahead with your question.
Great, thank you so much. My question is in regards to CMS resuming weapon and safety screenings at different school campuses. Why was that decided, and why is that important? And how are these students getting access to these weapons as well?
Yep. So in reference to the safety screenings, that is something instilled by CMS law enforcement, and I would definitely encourage you to reach out to them for a comment on that. We are always willing and able and to partner with CMS law enforcement. We do so every day, but regarding that decision, I want you to go direct with them on that. Next question.
Nate Morabito.
How are you, sir?
How are you, sir?
Hey, Lieutenant, good morning. Thanks for taking my question.
Morning.
You know, it's going to be a big weekend uptown. All eyes are going to be on uptown. There's going to be some big college football games in town this week. We know your officers will be working those games, much like they do Panthers games. Does that create less police protection for the rest of the city?
Well, and this is a story that the police department is working with Mr. Morabito on. Nate, we're continuing to work on getting you those specific staffing numbers and models that you've requested. But it's my loose understanding in looking at our emergency response times, that's the data we've been able to pull so far, is that, and we'll take it to the Panthers preseason game on August 21st and August 27th. Our response times on those days were the same as they have been on, we'll call it a non-game day. So we don't expect any kind of lapse in coverage or service provided to the community during those events. You know, as always, you're a pleasure to work with, Mr. Morabito. We can touch base offline as we continue to try to get you that staffing information and data.
Jonathan Limehouse.
Mr. Limehouse.
Hey, this might be a parter that might be kind of online as well, but I know that Councilman Bakari his wife got into an incident earlier today, and I wanted to know if you had any more information that you could share.
And I'm familiar with the media coverage of that so far. We're continuing to look into that internally as well. Mr. Limehouse, we can follow up offline as we continue to look into that case.
Thank you.
Question from Paige Peruso.
Ms. Peruso, good morning.
Good morning. Following up on that, just, obviously really hearing today about what happened to our family. We're back to school, we're getting bus stops again. Can you give some general safety advice of how to make sure your family
and advice to drivers who need to remember that bus stops are active again?
Right. Paige, you're a little difficult to hear, so I'm going to repeat the question for all of our listeners. Paige's question was more so towards general safety tips and recommendations, particularly as we start school back up. And I think everyone, as they make the morning commute, has seen that there's an increase in traffic and some delays in certain areas, as well as we have school buses on the road. We have little children all the way up to high schoolers who are waiting on the side of the road for buses. Number one, slow down. Make sure you get there safely. Make sure our kids get to school safely. Slow down. Be aware of what's going on. Put down all the distractions, the phones, your morning breakfast. All that can be put down. It can wait. Let's make sure everybody gets to where they need to get safely.
Final question from Lexi Wilson.
All right, Ms. Wilson?
Hi, CMS aside, I was just wondering if you could kind of speak on the rise in violence among teenagers that we've, recently seen, and maybe any advice to parents on that.
Right, and this is coming from a parent of a high schooler. Is you've got to be aware of what your kids are into, and we've got to mentor them, and not just parents, but it takes a village to raise folks, and those in the community. The police department cannot do it. We cannot do it by ourselves. It's going to take a community to start really enlightening people on better problem-solving skills, interpersonal communication skills, and conflict resolution skills. All right.
All right. This will be our last question because we do have a Spanish-speaking press conference immediately following this. So last question from our media partners.
Go ahead.
Aloha, Tina Quizan here. This is back to the original topic. What determines and how are the CPCR teams dispatched? And that might be something you guys want to send us some more information on offline.
Yeah, I'm going to let the major address that question, and then absolutely we can meet offline to give you some additional detailed information as well. Major?
Thank you for your question. Our team is dispatched from our officers that are on the scene. When they arrive on a scene and believe that that's something that our community police and response team can assist them with, they'll dispatch us. But I will also say, even if our team doesn't respond to the scene, even after, officers are able to contact our team, and our team will follow up and assist as necessary. So thank you for your question.
Thank you for joining us this morning. To our media partners and to the community, you are more than welcome to join us for our first Spanish-speaking specific press conference immediately following. Thank you.